Inconvenient, embarrassing, curse, painful, emotional, irrational. Words that I used to use to describe the menstrual cycle. And today I want to share with you how I restored my relationship with my own menstrual cycle and really fell in love with the beautiful process of being a woman. Hi, I'm Laura, a certified somatic practitioner who specializes in the female nervous system. And I say female because it is very unique and different from the male nervous system. We are designed in this beautiful, cyclical, seasonal way that our culture has lost the art of honoring. So today, I want to share with you how I went from seeing my menstrual cycle as an inconvenience to seeing it as the beautiful gift that it is. Just this morning, I was reflecting on the fact that I am headed to the beach in just a few days, and I am also at the end of my cycle and expecting my bleed at any moment. And my first thought was, what a bummer, that is so inconvenient. Going on a beach trip, having to deal with a bleed. But I caught myself. I recognized this thought pattern and I decided to rewrite it. So in order to really convey the mind shift that I had this morning, I want to talk through each stage of the menstrual cycle, how our bodies are responding, how our nervous system is responding, and shine some light on the beauty and the gift of each cycle part. So just to stick to the basics, a menstrual cycle is typically anywhere from 28 to 35 days. It starts on day 1 of your bleed and then counts from there. Typically the bleed is considered your internal winter. You start in winter and you also finish in winter, and there's something really beautiful about that. The next part of your cycle, as you get into days maybe 5, 6, 7, you move into that follicular phase, that springtime. Everything feels a little bit rosier, more hopeful. And then as you reach ovulation, you're moving into summertime. Ovulation is sort of that peak of summer, and then your hormones start to drop back down, progesterone rises, and you move into the luteal phase, or your internal fall, and that carries you all the way towards your next bleed. And maybe a day or two before you bleed, you start to move back into that internal winter state. So each phase has beautiful gifts. And I want to rewrite some of the ways that we've looked at these things as being inconvenient or bad. So let's start where it all starts, in the winter. So I used to think of my bleed as inconvenient, often painful, comes with cramps, comes with bloating, comes with fatigue, and oftentimes with some amount of emotion. Some amount of grief, some amount of sadness, often something that our body is releasing and expressing that we may not completely understand on a cognitive level. But I think we can actually honor this part. One of the most beautiful parts about the winter is this invitation to rest, the invitation to slow down, to release anything that is ready to be let go of, and we don't have to figure it out. We can actually just let our body move through the process and let it let go of whatever it is that we need to let go of. And there's a lot of freedom in that. The wintertime also has this really beautiful gift in that around day 3 or so, you will find you get this almost divine inspiration. I think every woman gets this right around that time. But I do think oftentimes we're not paying attention. But when you start to tune in and develop a relationship with your menstrual cycle, you will notice this. that day 3, that little spark. I have kind of made it through the darkest part, and I'm starting to feel hopeful again. And there's something inside me, a tiny seed, if you will, that is ready to be planted. And maybe it's a project. Maybe it's a new idea. Maybe it's a new rhythm you want to add into your family life. Maybe it is a new project in your home. Maybe you want to paint a wall. Maybe you want to start something new. Like maybe you want to learn how to sew. You will find that this inspiration that drops in is not something that you want to necessarily pick up and run with right away, but knowing that you can just hold it and let it develop over the month can be very grounding and very clarifying for your nervous system. It feels really safe to know, okay, I have direction, but I don't have to move too quickly quite yet. And then as you move into the next few days, that 4, 5, 6, and you start to feel some of your energy return. And what you'll notice in this internal spring, there's a certain amount of kind of rosy colored glasses. Life looks beautiful. You're excited about different things that are coming up. And if you've planted that seed, this is such a good time to just nurture that seed, water it. So let's maybe use a tangible example. This is one I'm feeling coming for me, so I will maybe get to work through some of it making this video. So let's say the seed that I receive is that I want to sort of revamp and add more nourishment into my family's dinner meals. And maybe I also want to see if we can move some of those meals outdoors. So I received that seed in the wintertime, and I'm just holding it for now. And then as I move into spring, get a little bit more of that energy, maybe I start to source some of the ingredients that I want to add into those meals. So maybe I want to find local eggs, or maybe I want to connect with a local farmer for certain meat products. Maybe I want to connect with a local farmer for certain produce, or maybe I want to check out the farmer's market and see what's available, what's in season. Springtime is such a great time to explore that internally and externally. But thinking about that kind of spring freshness, instead of immediately throwing out everything you have and making all new meals, all these new recipes all at once, thinking about just adding in a little bit of an action step. So I'm going to think about gathering the ingredients and increasing the nourishment that I'm wanting to add to these meals that I'm wanting to feed to my family. Then you move into that summertime, and your summer will start to show up before you ovulate. So in that summertime that's coming in, you will start to feel kind of your heightening of energy and also your motivation to really kind of try that new thing. It's that time where things really start to fruit. And so as you're moving towards ovulation, maybe that's the best time to be like, hey, we are going to try 2 new meals this week where I know I'm in my internal summer and I'm going to have the energy and I'm going to have the motivation. Let's try 2 new meals. We've sourced our products. We've got everything that we need. We've got a plan, and now I have the energy to cook these meals. And then you get to see, my children responded so well, my husband responded so well. We were able to eat one of those meals outside, and it was just this beautiful time as a family. And then you move into, you ovulate, and post-ovulation, you'll start to notice a shift in your hormones. And what increases in your fall, your internal fall, your luteal phase, is the hormone progesterone. And it's a really good time to sort through and evaluate the seed that you planted. So using this example of adding in new nourishing meals for our family and bringing them outside. When I reach that fall, so the week after we've tried this in our summer, I can evaluate, how did that go? This meal went really well. Maybe there was something in this meal that the family didn't really love. Or maybe I notice that when we eat our meals at a certain time, that things go a little bit smoother. I can kind of take a look around and take inventory and then make changes for the future based on what I am evaluating from seeing in the past. And it's a great time to kind of continue. Yeah, maybe you try another meal that week, or maybe you just redo the one that didn't work very well and then assess that. You have that ability in your fall stage to kind of shift and change and make decisions. You have a much more clear yes and no about things, and that can be so helpful. Especially, I find for me, it was really helpful when I started to embrace my internal fall and really trust my own yes and no. And then you move back into that winter phase again. And at that point, you realize, okay, we need to let certain things go. That bleed is coming. Maybe now I'm seeing that like this ingredient really didn't work. We don't really need to spend our energy on that anymore. Or I'm seeing, I want to ship to this farm over here because it's a little bit more convenient as far as picking up during the week. And you're able to let go of what didn't work, keep what did, and then build on that in the next cycle. And you may find you get, a new seed, a new inspiration on your next bleed. Or you may find that you're just deepening those roots that you've already planted. You're a woman, you're complex, you're able to plant many different seeds at a time. But it can be really helpful when you first start engaging with your menstrual cycle in this way to pay attention to that main seed that's coming in during your bleed. And really watch the process of it growing and fruiting and then harvesting, and then seeing what you need to let go of. And it's such a beautiful way to live as a woman. It can be this, what might seem as like the most productive way to live. And at the same time, you're honoring yourself and your cycle in a way that is so restful and restorative. It's really beautiful. And it's changed the way that I function on so many levels. So I also want to go back through each step of the cycle and talk a little bit more about the emotional aspect and the way that you can kind of interact with your subconscious and your nervous system during each phase of the cycle. And so we will start where it starts, in the winter. This is a time when you're letting go of different things, and you may find that you are able to get in touch with some of those emotions that are a little bit more tender. And so you may feel more sadness coming up or more grief. And that may be a good time to lean into those parts of you that want to be tended to, and really offering yourself a lot of grace and a lot of rest and a lot of nourishment. So really nourishing the body physically, but then emotionally, really nourishing yourself emotionally, really leaning into this concept that you are always held. I love this somatic practice, and it is so simple that I'm just going to share it here now so you can try this maybe the next time you're on your bleed. If you are, let's say you're resting in your bed, I want you to just think about the fact that the bed is holding you, that you are not holding the bed. The bed is not going anywhere. It's not going to leave you. It's not going to break. It is fully capable of holding you. And can you let it? Even just 3 to 5% more, let the bed hold you. And try that on your bleed. See how it feels to know that you don't have to hold yourself all the time. Let something else hold you. And then as you move towards that springtime and you start to have sort of this hopeful view on the world, and you're noticing the beauty around you, it's a really great time to tap into that pleasure. So just noticing how beautiful everything is around you. It's a great time to really wire in and familiarize your nervous system with the feeling of safety and the feeling of awe It's so beautiful to get as much of that into your nervous system as you can, because the more familiar it is, the more likely you are to kind of default to that feeling. When our nervous system is familiar with stressed and worried and anxious, that's what it tends to default to. So the more that we can familiarize our nervous system with safety and pleasure and beauty and slowness and joy, the more likely it is that our nervous system will feel safe to default into that direction. And the springtime is such a good time to lean into that. It's also a time when you are still kind of moving out of that tender phase of the menstrual period time. And so it's a good time to look at the goodness and the sweetness of your emotions and noticing what's coming up, but really leaning into those kind of feel good emotions. It may not be the best time to like dive into the deep, painful, hard parts of your story and parts of your subconscious. And then as you move into that inner summertime and you're kind of at that peak of energy, this is a really magical time because you have the ability to look at some of the harder things, but with the energy and the fruitfulness of that summer. And so you can kind of be piggybacking off of that joy and pleasure and really maximizing that. And at the same time, start to tap into some of those deeper, a little bit more uncomfortable parts of your subconscious and start working on bringing that joy and that pleasure and that fullness into those parts. And then as you move into your luteal phase and into that inner fall, you may find that anything that you have been sort of ignoring or anything that feels out of alignment is going to start becoming a lot more clear. And what I find for me is it will show up as a lot of anger. And that may be different for each person. For someone, it may show up as irritability or frustration or just kind of an anxiousness or a lack of peace. But I find that time we tend to kind of villainize those feelings when in reality they're really kind of redirecting us. It goes back to that being able to know your yes and your no, being able to sort through what you really want. So when you're able to sort of observe those emotions and make them a little bit more neutral, not give them a lot of power, but let them kind of show you and guide you and direct you into maybe what needs to change or what needs to be let go of, or what maybe is working really well. It's a great time to let those kind of deeper, darker feelings come to the surface, and you have that energy and that fruit and that pleasure and that safety that you've built from the beginning of your menstrual cycle to really be able to hold and to transmute the energy that comes in that fall. It can be a really powerful and potent time. And I think it gets a bad rap because it often comes with symptoms, like PMS symptoms. And for me, that all that's saying is that your body has a lot to say. She's asking for a lot of changes. If you're having a lot of those PMS symptoms, it's your body communicating with you. And it can be really helpful to lean in and listen. And like we've talked about in another video, give those parts of you a hug and tell them that you're there, that you hear them. Instead of calling them bad or inconvenient or emotional, it's a really good time to offer those parts compassion and offer those parts grace and offer them your witness, just sitting with them and letting them be there. It's really beautiful and can be just massively transformative. And then once you get to that, winter time starts to kick in and you really start to turn inward. This is one of my favorite times, moving into that winter. This is actually where I am right now in my cycle. So this is kind of what came through this morning was, okay, instead of deciding that going to the beach and heading towards my bleed was inconvenient, I decided to look at where I was in my cycle, that early winter, where you start to kind of pull back into yourself and you start to slow down and you start to become more reflective. It's as if you can see yourself more clearly, and you have this connection with your internal world where you can really embrace what is there for you. And there's always gifts when we embrace that. All these parts of us that are communicating with us and wanting our attention, they have these really beautiful gifts to give us. And this time when you're heading into winter and you're moving into reflective and inward is a really beautiful time to see those gifts clearly and be able to embrace them and receive them. And being able to receive is one of the most powerful things about being a woman, because one of the biggest changes that's come to me from embracing my menstrual cycle is being able to see that my value and my goodness is not based on this male-centered view of productivity. It's actually just innate in who I am. It's innate in who you are. You just being is valuable and is unconditionally loved. And when we as women are able to fully receive that, we become this vibrant, radiant version of ourselves. It's radically transformative. So part of the gift I realized in moving into this internal winter, moving into a bleed on a beach trip, is I get to go through the experience of how much am I able to receive? How much am I willing to receive? And I think it's really beautiful. The trip I'm going on, my husband's going, our kids are going, and we're going with my mom and my aunt and some of our family. And even just reflecting on it this morning, my mom and aunt have already planned all of the meals. They are getting all of the food. They booked the place, so we didn't have to make those decisions. It's just this really beautiful opportunity to see how much can I truly receive in this part of my cycle with this experience. So embracing your menstrual cycle and embracing the way that you ebb and flow throughout the month, it shifts everything. It helps you step into this place where your beingness is everything. It's all that you need. And you will find that the way that you move through life and create and produce from that fully rested place is completely different than the way that you move through the world and produce when you're running on cortisol and going and making checklists and making sure you're getting everything done and trying to be consistent throughout your entire cycle. It's radically different, and it's really, really beautiful. As someone who has a daughter who in the next few years will be starting to have this cyclical experience for herself, there is no greater gift, I believe, that I could give her than a mother who loves her body and loves her womanhood. And that is what I want for this entire next generation. And it has to start with us. It has to start with us as the mothers. If we love our bodies and we love our womanhood and we love our menstrual cycle, we will pass that down to these girls. And they could literally change the world if they are able to embrace that love of how they've been created so perfectly, that they are not cursed, that they are not dirty, that they are not bad, that there's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's actually this really beautiful gift. So if you are watching this video and you start to feel that feeling of like, I don't know about this, I still kind of don't really like my cycle that much, I still see it as inconvenient, or I have these really strong symptoms in my luteal phase, I would love to talk to you. Even if you just want to send me an email, or if you want to set up a one-on-one session, I would love to talk to you and just see if there is some sort of relationship that you can build with your menstrual cycle to really start to love her and appreciate her and see the goodness. I think it matters so much. So if you're looking to connect, you can find me at the email below. Thanks so much for watching today.